Thank
Awesome.
you for coming and being my first great guest on Stories with Bree. I'm super
For
excited.
having me.
Super excited. Well, everybody, this is Dominique Bibbs, aka Nikigotagun, who she goes by her author's name. And I'm super excited because it's just like to have you here. And I got my book that I call
Okay.
this is my proof copy. My good copy is sitting over there on my shelf. This is my proof copy because my goal is today was to go back through the book and to look at some stuff, but I still kind of have some things committed to memory that we could probably talk about, but we ain't gonna give them too much because we want them to go to
Of course.
and purchase the book. Okay, so I want to start this off. I think my goal here and on this podcast, and forgive me, y'all, because it's been a very long day. I was at work. I'm a little tired, but we doing this, and I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I have my phone, and I want to do some icebreakers to kind of like get us started off. So my first question is, what is your favorite childhood book?
Oh my gosh. So my favorite childhood book is The Giving Tree.
The Giving Tree. You know what?
Yeah.
Briefly, I've never read The Giving Tree, but I know so many people who would actually say that that was their favorite childhood book as well. And it's just like, I need to read The Giving Tree because so just tell us a little bit what it was about.
I literally just like reread it because I'm like, man, I have literally not read this book since first grade. But really, when I was reading, I was like, man, this seems like a parent-child relationship. Like your parent takes care of you, they give you everything that they have, and then you just get to a point where you can have everything in the world, but you just kind of you realize you don't need all that stuff. All that stuff didn't really make you happy. So it was interesting rereading as an adult versus as a kid.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's like I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to reread this again because I'm like, there's so many
things in there.
there's so many messages just in that child, like in that book for a kid. I'm like,
I'm gonna put it on my to-do list.
yeah.
Here because I've heard many good things about it, so I'm gonna definitely put it on my to-do list to read this year. I'm currently reading this book. I ain't gonna say too much about it because I got to do a review about it later because but when I tell you this book is giving me the blues. Okay, it's called Grown by Tiffany Jackson, and it's a YA fiction, and it kind of reminds me of my own book, but it's just like this YA. Like, wait a minute. If I knew YA was popping like this when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have been out here sneaking around reading their Jerome Dickey and reading all these what we consider adult urban fiction books. But
oh my god, yeah.
Okay, but wait a minute. So it's girl. Listen. I feel like it's a spin on like the R. Kelly story, and if you're familiar with that, then this book is like, but like I said, I'm gonna do a review on that later. So
I'm gonna have to watch that one because I want to know more. I'm gonna have to pick that one up.
And so as you all know, I'm a librarian, or as you know, I am a librarian. So I have to ask, do you have a library card? If you do, how many library cards do you have? Are you actively using your library card?
I am a library card holder. I worked at the library for 2 years.
Yes.
As a vet coordinator. So yes, I have one. My son has one. So yes, we have library cards up in this house.
I'm a library card advocate because listen, y'all paying your taxes already to public libraries to make sure that they stay open. And why not utilize this free resource that you have available to you? Because libraries are important. People often there's so many different legislative things going on talking about libraries and all of this different stuff. But at the end of the day, libraries are important to communities, and they are very much so needed and necessary. And so I am super excited that you have a library card and that you are actually taking initiative to use it. And I want to say keep using it, keep it active, because you never know when you might need it. You might not be able to have internet access to something. So libraries provide internet access, free internet access to communities. Library provides reading resources. And to be quite honest, as Black people, Black History Month, hey, we're
It's our month.
There was a time when we couldn't use the library, or we had segregated libraries. So it is a privilege to have a library card. So get off my soapbox, but I'm happy that you have one. And so then my next question is probably a little weird, but digital or pen and paper?
Pen and paper.
You prefer pen and paper?
Yeah. Okay. Pen and paper all the time.
That's interesting. I guess I'm more of a mixed person. Like I do a little bit of pen, I do a little bit of paper every now and then, but most of my life is digital now. And I think it always kind of has been, because listen, I be on the go. I have to go. And my notes app in my phone
be popping.
It is popping. It is popping.
But sometimes you just can't get your notepad and pen out, quick enough. But I don't know, like I'll be, I'll leave notes and then I'm like, that thought wasn't complete, but I'm like, whatever, I'll come back to it. At least with a pen and paper, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to put the full thought out. I know that's weird, but
I don't think it's weird. And to be quite honest, it's like, it is something like very much so stress relieving about writing and about physically writing something down. There is something that I don't know, the scientific
retain information better.
Yeah, I agree with that too. You definitely retain information better, but there's definitely something about, there is a release that happens when you write things down on paper. So, I mean, I'm not knocking it. Pen and paper.
Old school.
Old school. So we're here to talk to you about your first book, because listen, I believe that there are going to be many, many more, but we're here to talk about 29 Lessons, A Diary of a Black Girl. And I am so excited and so proud regards to this book, because first off, girl, this book it's so much stuff in here. Like, it's so much stuff in here that talks about like life that's so relatable, that's so that like I found myself connecting to on like a deeper level. I remember when we were going through this book, because if you all don't know, I'm a publisher and I was helping Dominique to publish this book. And I remember when I was going through this book and you were saying some stuff, and I had to text you like, wait a minute, who is this? Like,
we're the same person.
Or we cross wires. Let me know, because I'm telling you, this sounds too familiar to me. Like, what we doing, sis? What we doing? Are we
living the same life? Like, all of each other's business.
We was in each other's business, and I was like, boy, I was not alone. It's a lot of Black women that was going through it out here with these men, with somebody's son. And
every single day, I'm like, why? Like, there's no way we're all dating the same type. Like, did you guys all go through like the same type of schooling on how to be boyfriends? Because
I swear it's a handbook for listen, I'm gonna try not to keep it PG. There is a handbook for messy boy stuff. Like, cause listen, I was about to say something, and then I had to remind myself, like, wait, we trying to keep this program in PG-13.
Okay.
So there has to be a manual or something, because like, what we doing? What we doing, bruh? But let's tell the audience really, why you decided to name this 29 Lessons, A Diary of a Black Girl. Give us some insight on that, on your creative writing process when you decided to name your first book this.
So I had like a number thing. Like, numbers to me like mean, like a lot, like to me, and symbolizes, different parts of my life. So at first, when I was writing the book, I was really kind of stuck on the number 13, because to me, like, Friday the 13th is like my luckiest day. Any Friday the 13th.
My favorite day, and I know people be like, "Are you crazy?"
I don't get superstitious. I was like, that's like my best day. Like, that's like the luckiest day for me. Any Friday the 13th that rolls around. But I was just like, okay, well, 13 is not. This is not gonna work. I lived longer than 13, years. So I was just like, okay, well, my 20s are ending. And like my 20s, I felt like 20s were like the extension of your teenage years. So I was like, okay, well, I was just like, we're just gonna call it 29 lessons, because Jesus, I had a lot of lessons in the 29 years of life that I lived. So
let's talk about
I had a title, but I didn't technically have the book, if that makes. I had the title. I was just like, it's gonna call 29 Lessons. That was it. And I remember I was telling you that.
Right.
It was just 29 lessons. You're like, we can add something, we can change it. I was like, yeah, but for right now it's just 29 lessons. And then I don't know, A Diary of a Black Girl just came about, because I was just like, well, that's what the book is. It's a diary.
Yeah.
A black girl.
Like it literally is you giving us insider knowledge, like giving us the ability to take a peek inside of your life. And I'm like, wait, like a lot of us don't even want to be this vulnerable. A lot of us don't even want fuck to be all up in our business like this. But it's like Nikki out here, like, listen, this is what happened. This is what's going on. You talk about so many things, and this book came at a time where I was just like, oh my gosh, like, wait, are we really about to get into this? We really about to get into this vulnerable moment? Like these, to see Black women, like there are a series of different books that are happening right now that I'm just like, wow, like, whoa. Yeah. And so to see Black women like expressing themselves, like there's so many books that I feel like within the last couple of years that's came out. Like recently I just finished reading You Got Anything Stronger, which was Gabrielle Union's second book. And she was super vulnerable and very open and honest. And so I feel like there has been this pattern of consistency where Black women have been showing up and they've been like, I no longer want to pretend or act like I'm this super strong wall, this person where there's nothing that gets to me. It's like y'all breaking down that fourth wall and be like, no, this is what's going on. This is how I feel. Things actually hurt me and affect me. And I think that in 29 Lessons, you were showing that like a lot. And so going through as an author, writing down these thoughts, what are you feeling? Like, how are you feeling during this time? Like, what's going on? How long did it take you to write this book?
So I've been writing since 5th grade. This book idea came to me when I was 10.
Wow.
So it's like, I literally sat down and thought about it one day. I was like, this idea came to you when you were 10. And here we are in our 30s. We finally have a book out. I had to live life. Like I had this big idea of like how I want my life to be, but I'm like, you're 10, you haven't even lived, so like how are you going to do all of this? So I had a hard time of like trying to live, and also like I knew what I was destined to do. Okay. And it feels like it just took a while for me to like just come together, like, okay, you lived this crazy life, having a baby at 17 and going through weird relationships and friendships and trying to graduate college, and then losing my dad. It was just like, okay, I went through a lot of milestones.
Yeah, that is a lot. That's a lot for one person to deal with. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think we're kind of in the same boat, and we're similar in that situation where it's like, I always knew that I would write a story about my life. Like I always knew I would write a book about my life. I did not know at the time that my life would be book worthy and be super and it will have all these different things going on. But I always knew that I would write a book about my life. And so to read your book and to read about your life, and like I said, there were just so many similarities that I just was kind of like affected. And you talk about, your fascination with numbers. And I want to go to the book because, like you said, you have these 29 lessons. And what I found fascinating is that they show up throughout the book as you go through and you read it. And you're like, oh, okay. And then out the gate, the first one says, be careful who you call your friend. And I'm like, see, okay, sis.
And that was the number one rule my dad taught me. Like I remember, like I could like still like picture myself like in the kitchen with him, and he just looked at me. He's just like, you have to be careful who you call your friend. Man, like it's a life and death situation every single time. And I'm like, as a kid, you don't get it, but it always, was in the back of my head. And then when I lost him, it kind of showed me like, dang, these people are not my friends. Like people will love you when you're the life of the party, but the moment you're depressed and you can't give them that energy to feed off of, then it's like you're no longer, and they don't need you. So it really showed me like, dang, who's really in my corner, who's not. Has been a very interesting journey of cutting off friendships and just moving on. It's like, I've been trying to tell people, like, not every experience is supposed to last forever.
Yeah, I agree.
And we hold on to things like, oh, we have so many memories. Like, yeah, but sometimes you got to just let go and go on a different path and live that next life. Like, there's so many lives that we get to live down here before we go back home.
I I really agree with that, because like I think there's the saying that says that when you have major points in your life, that's when you really find out who your friends are. Like they often say the major stressor points for you finding out whether or not a friendship is ride or die is when you have a baby, when you go through having a wedding, going through marriage, when you go through a really significant death of a close loved one. Like those are pressure points within relationships where you begin to find out like, oh, are these people really here for me? Are they really riding with me? Or is this just a situation where we were just here, we were temporarily, we were only here for the long, for not necessarily for the long haul, but only here for like a certain period of time. And so I completely understand that. And so when I saw the first one, it was like, be careful who you call your friend. I'm like, yo, yeah, you really do. And I just been in my book bag, so I'm gonna have a lot of book suggestions throughout it. So one of this another book that have been reading like on and off for the last year was called Relational Intelligence. And in the book, Dr. Darius talks about that there are different levels to and different types of places that you need to put people in. And he said you need to know if somebody's an associate, somebody's a friend, somebody's a mentor. And then I don't remember what the fourth one was, but it was like you have to put people in their proper places. And he also talks about, because he's also my pastor, but he often talks about, and he also says in the book that relationships are equally the best thing you'll ever have, but even more so on the other side of that, the hardest thing that you'll ever have to go through is like creating and building relationships with people, because God created us to be relational people. We were created to be connected, even though we live in this very much so digital disassociated world. God created us to be in community and things of that nature. And so to have to learn how to navigate through these different ebbs and flows with relationships, especially now both of us being in our 30s, I definitely would say that I know more now in my 30s in regards to how I actually want to show up as a friend and how I want to have friendships versus where I was just out here flipping. You know what? Let me not lie on myself. I ain't never been the type to just be out here being friends with everybody. I'm going to be quite honest. I just listen. I've always kind of had like a very small crew. I've always been the person that's like, this is my core friends, no new friends, get up out of here. It's going to take me a while to kind of understand and check you out and see. I ain't never been that big of a social butterfly. And maybe that's how I was always nurtured. So that's just me. That's just me. How about you?
I went through a phase where like I kind of was just like I was on my own, but like I was like, cool with like, a lot of people where, you just like, intermingle with everyone. But I feel like in my 20s, I felt like I needed to like have the core group of friends because I felt like I missed out because, had my son early and like so my teenage years was kind of like taken away. But I wish I didn't do that. I wish I would have just stayed focused into myself and had my, just like, my core group of friends. Like now, like I'm 30, I'm like very cautious about like,
who your core friends are and stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, now I'm like, okay, I got my core group now.
I have a core group and they all know who they are. And, and I'm very clear on my boundaries there. Very clear on like my boundaries. And, I've had some situations where I've made the mistake of allowing people into my core circle, into my space, where that didn't necessarily prove that they deserve to be in that space. And I did kind of get hurt. And these are recent, things that has happened. And I did kind of get hurt. But then at the end of the day, once I redrew that boundary and actually took my time to understand, like, oh, did you actually put your weight in? Like, did you actually show up in a way that you actually needed to show up and be in this relationship? Did you prove that you were trustworthy? And then when you go back and reevaluate those things, you're like, what was I? Look, we ain't got nothing else to talk about. You can get up out of here. Like, you can go. Because at the end of the day, I know who my core people is. And I know these are my what we call our ride or dies. These are the people that if I called them today, Like, I know for a sure fact they're gonna be there for me in some kind of way. Either they're gonna show up and be at my doorstep, or they gonna sit there on the phone with me. They're gonna listen, they gonna guide me, they gonna give me wisdom, they gonna tell me the truth. They ain't gonna sit here and sugarcoat it. They know they not gonna be my yes man. They're gonna be like, no, you was jacking up there.
Okay.
You messed that up. And so this is how you probably need to go about fixing it. And then they're gonna pray with me, and then we're gonna keep them, we're gonna go out for some pizza or something. We're
gonna celebrate something.
And so I actually do have questions. I know that this is free flowing, and I love, having this because I just don't want people to feel like they being interviewed. You know what I'm saying? Like
the interviews feeling like job interviews feel like dates.
Feel like that's not what this is about. This is about us having
we're having fun.
And so I did have another question, because I think like somebody who wants to go, here's one question, two questions actually, that anybody that wants to go and check out your book, what do you feel like was probably, I want two answers. So what do you think was the hardest thing you did, or the hardest part of writing your book? And then what do you think was the most fun part? Like when did you feel like what sections in any type of poem or whatever? Because we didn't mention that this is a mixture. Like this is a mixture of prose,
journal, and a poem.
So it's like it's really fulfilling. So what do you feel, like I said, what was the hardest part about writing? And then because you do express so much have very much so vulnerable moments. And then what was like the fun part? What did you enjoy?
So that's the thing. So the process of writing the book, it was me, what I was just doing every day was journaling. And like, I got an obsession of buying cute notebooks. So the notebook that I chose, that's like literally the whole book, it was just like, okay, this is, I had like a certain way I wanted to write in like this journal. So each journal entry has, to me, it was just like the title of like each passage, it was an episode, is the way when I was writing it. Because my life is like a movie, my life is like a TV show. So every title is really like the title of the episode. So that was like the process of going into it. But it was just like I was just literally just living my life. Okay. And just was writing what was going on, because like I was getting up to my 30th birthday. I was going through a breakup. There's like, all these changes going on. I knew my dad was in the process of dying, but not really thinking too much about it. Just like I knew it was happening, but I was just like, I just can't really process it. Yeah. So like that, all that is going on in my head, but I'm just writing. Yeah. There really wasn't there wasn't really a hard part. I guess the only hard part was to just type up everything, because oh dang, I was like, I had to type this. I gotta type this up. Yeah. That was probably the hardest. That was probably like the hardest part, was just to actually like get up every day and like type. And I didn't realize how much I had wrote.
Yeah, because that's that pen and that paper. You don't realize how much you got going on.
I didn't realize how much I wrote.
Go deep dive in there. Like speaking of, you talk about, there is, and hopefully I can find it real quick. I may or may not be able to, and that's on me because I didn't bookmark it. But there are several things like these diary, like you say, it's written out like it's a journal, and there's diary entries in here, and there's so many different like things that you have going on. And you mentioned your father, and you mentioned the death of your father, and you actually have a poem in here, and we'll go back to talking about that. But you mentioned losing your dad, and there were moments in here where you talked about like your grieving process, and you talked about how you felt going through it with him, like going through to the hospital with him, and all of those different stuff in your diary entries. And I don't want to flip all the way through because I can't find it right now, but there is a poem. No, it's not the poem. It is a poem. Sorry, y'all. Listen, there's a poem, and it's called Dad's Oatmeal, and I believe it's called, right? Dad's Oatmeal Recipe. And I was just like,
probably, yeah.
Who would remember that? And no, I thought that was so significant. It's towards the back of the book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's on this page with this beautiful portrait, you know, like I said, go pick up the book, y'all.
There's a lot of artwork, there's poetry. There's a playlist. There's a playlist that goes with it.
Check that out on what's like Spotify and Apple.
Spotify.
Dope at playlist, y'all. Listen, it gave me all the feels, all the nostalgia. I was like, I remember this song. I remember this thing. I was jamming that for a good little minute. It's plenty of music. Look, it'll get you through the whole day cleaning your house.
Okay.
And all of that.
It's a good playlist.
It's a good playlist. So that's oatmeal. So it says half a cup of oatmeal, a cup of water, 2 tablespoons of butter, pet milk, pour and go around the pot twice. I felt like that was so specific. It was so specific. But what made you decide to include that? I know a lot of people have like different reasons for why they, do what they do, but I felt like this whole thing was like very specific. And how did you putting that in your book make you feel good about honoring your father in that way?
Oatmeal was his like, he would make oatmeal for us like all the time. And the way he would make oatmeal was just so good. It was creamy, it was buttery, it was just sweet. And he would always make it for us, like especially like me and my siblings, if we were sick, if we were having a bad day. It was like our comfort food. So when I think of him, I think of like oatmeal because it was like warm and home, and I just felt good anytime he made me a bowl. But I remember making him some while he was sick. I was like, "You want oatmeal?" He was like, "Yeah." And I would have to ask him because there was a certain way to do it. So when he was telling me, I wrote it down in my notebook because I was like, okay, I'm gonna need this one day. Because
and you did giving it to the world, and it's so sweet. Like I think that was when I was like reading your manuscript, and I was going through reading the book, and I was like, this is a very precious, specific moment. And and the reason why I think I enjoyed it so much is because I recently lost my great grandmother. And this month will actually make a full year that she's been gone. And one of the things that she used to make all the time was sweet potato pie. And she, for years, would never give us the recipe for her.
Wow.
And I was like, this should not die with you, because we talk about cooking in the African American community is a tradition in itself. And so we talk about how oftentimes our matriarchs and our patriarchs die, but they recipes, if we didn't write it down, they die with them. And so then it's a generational thing. It's something that's beautiful to be able to pass down recipes, because a lot of times we always think about wealth as being just monetary, but there is wealth in creating and encapsulating culture, and food is a part of African American culture. Very and so much. To have this, this oatmeal recipe, to have this sweet potato pie recipe, and so close to like when she was kind of sick and sick, she started to give, like her and my auntie Sandy, they gave us the recipe and she texted to me. And so what I did is I made sure that I screenshot that, because I didn't want to lose it. At any point when I decide that I want to make a sweet potato pie, I want to make a sweet potato pie like my great grandma made it, so that I can always, remember and can remember her, encapsulate her in that moment. Now I haven't made it yet, because I low key, y'all, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little scared to make it, because I don't want it to be crying all over the pie and then the pie be wet and it be full of tears. But maybe I want it to be a sorrow pie, I want it to be a sweet potato pie, so I'll make it ready. And your dad's oatmeal recipe, it was different. It's kind of like that whole like grits controversy, where it's like, do you like sweet grits? Do you like savory grits? Yeah. But it's like your dad, I'm like, pet milk. I remember when I was like, pet milk, that's different. Who puts pet milk in oatmeal? And but I was like, this sounds great. Now I haven't tried the recipe yet, but when I do,
it is very good. It's so good. Try that. I haven't had oatmeal in a while, and I feel like you said, like, don't want to make it and crying. Right. Because look, was it Christmas? No, Christmas I made greens and it tastes just like his, and I cried. Yeah.
See,
and I was like, it's good when you cry. And I was like, this tastes just like his. So I was like, I was very happy.
But it makes you feel good. It makes you feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're really sad tears. It's more of like, I miss you tears, but these greens fire. So I'm
okay, because I've been missing his cooking. I've been missing my dad's cooking so bad.
And so I'm super excited about that. But on another note, because we was talking about the people's sons.
Yeah.
I know that we didn't have this little sad moment, but now I'm gonna get a little ratchet because
let's get ratchet.
Theme of this, a part of the theme of this podcast. I know I'm gonna be a little ratchet sometimes. I'm just gonna be honest.
It's okay.
I'm gonna be my full self, and so we're gonna go back to talking about something that tried your life for these years throughout this. Y'all go read the book and y'all go pick it up, and y'all
so you can get it the team.
Get the tea. But listen, throughout this book, there was a young man, and I believe his name was Charles. Charles made me want to square up. I ain't gonna hold you. I was like, okay, Lord, I know there's two sides, 3 sides to the story, her side, his side, and the truth. But Charles sounded like he was trash. Like, what? Sir, what? Like, what we doing? So talk to us a little bit about Charles and why you felt like you wanted to even share that part of your life with your readers. Because listen, you got, entries in here talking about like boy bye, all types of stuff. So like, why would you even share that with us? A lot of people be like, that's embarrassing. I don't want nobody to know all that. But you was like, no.
Because it's honest, every woman has gone through the ringer with somebody that they were like madly in love with, and they were treating them like shit. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Listen,
it just happened to me in my 20s, and even in my 20s, I knew. I was like, you don't want to go through this in your 30s because that will be embarrassing. At least in my 20s, it's my extended teenagers. I don't know no better.
Listen,
so
it happened. My 20s and my 30s, but God is good. Amen.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
But I had to, because it's the honest truth. I would be lying if I wasn't being honest about what I went through, how I got here.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is still going, because like once I get with my person, it's like look what I went through just to be here. But yeah, I just had to speak my truth.
I could write a whole book on love and love stories, and low key I am, but that's all right, because it's very true. Like, you go through these different situations, you go through, I don't want to call them tragedies, but I guess that's what they is, because you even got a poem here called Situationships, and I got a whole chapter in my book, Confessions of a Young Adult's Life, called Situationships, where we're talking about these connections, these what we call them these days trauma bonds, and these different that we connect with people on these levels and on these dysfunctional levels, and we end up in these situations because we're either seeking to have answers, or we're seeking to solutions. Oh, that was good. Come through with the word.
Okay, come on.
Come through with the quotes. You're either seeking to, have answers, or seeking to be solutions. And low key, most of the time, I was trying to be somebody's solution. I was trying to build me a man. I love me a good project, and it was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then sometimes it was a situation like recently where I may have been seeking some answers, and so I wanted more, and I was trying to get more. I was trying to like pull on this person to be something for me that they couldn't necessarily be. And so it's just these whole different these cycles of like going in and out. And so then it's just like, when do you break the cycle? Like, when do you come up out of it? And I feel like as your book progressed, you saw within the diary entries, like, oh, there she is. She's breaking the cycle. Like, she's like, no, I'm through. I'm done. Like, no, we good. So how did that go for you? Like, I know that you said writing this stuff out and writing it down. Like, how are you now currently actively living that out? Like, you're staying away from it. You're freely like,
I'm clean.
You're clean. You're sober.
It felt like I was in felt like I was a drug addict. Like, and I see why people say, you know, you're in those type of relationships, you feel like you're an addict. And like, I'm not afraid to say, like, I was very, very codependent on this person for like almost everything. For like, I couldn't live or breathe without him. When really I was the energy in the relationship. It was just that I was so depleted.
Girl, listen, you really feel like a fiend out here. Like
I had to break it.
Like, I think I even I remember saying that he was like my pusher. Like, look, you was a good dope dealer. You was selling dreams out here. And I was buying every which way, every one that you was selling. Like, you was my kryptonite. It literally felt like a withdrawal period. Like, you were just stopping cold turkey. Did that kind of like, is that what it kind of felt like to you? Like, you were going through this withdrawal system? Did you give yourself time? Did you go through counseling? Like, how did you manage this whole situation?
So that's how skating came into play.
Okay.
So skating took place of like him.
Okay.
I was in a routine where I was literally going skating like at 6:00 every single day with my cousin at the park, like every single day. Mm-hmm. So like I was very committed to like skating, and I was looking forward to skating. So skating became my boyfriend. And it got to a point where I didn't care if I didn't talk to him all day. I didn't care if I didn't hear from him, or if I text him. It's just like I didn't care no more. And I was just like, I'm focused on me, and I'm working on this one thing, trying to stay on these skates and not bust my butt. I didn't care.
First off,
it's like I had a new obsession. That's what it was. It's like I had a new obsession, and it was skating, and it wasn't a boy. It wasn't me obsessing over no one else. It was like over activity. And that's the one thing that saved me, because I could have easily fell into another terrible relationship trying to replace him when I really just needed self-love, and I just need to love myself.
That's so good. So your new obsession was you. Your new obsession was you. I love that. Like, I love the fact that you literally was just like, we're done with this. And so now I'm going to distract myself when I'm okay. First off, you're brave, because me, I've never knew how to skate, and I've been thinking about it, but I'm like, nah, baby, I'm then got too old to be getting injured, breaking bones, being hurt. Because if I fall now, a fall versus a fall in your teens and your 20s is a whole nother ball game. You be hurt for days. You hear me? That I'd be like, Lord, what did I did? You might pull a back muscle, just bend it down the wrong way. And so I'm like, no, this is not how my body's supposed to be feeling at this age. So what we doing? What we doing? So kudos to you, because you be doing your thing on Instagram and stuff. I'm like, yeah, she out here skating, she getting it. I'm like, go ahead, I'm addicted. I'm gonna live through you, because I ain't finna do it. I ain't finna do it. So I have some other questions, I guess, just some, because like I said, this podcast is all encompassing. And so I have another question, and it's not necessarily book related, but it kind of is. It has to deal with you. I feel like authors are creatives at heart in general, because it takes a lot to actually sit down, formulate words, come up with something. You can write something all day, but to come up with something that's going to be rememberable, that's going to be catching, is just like a whole nother level, or a whole nother side of your brain. Because this book is based off of your real life, but you had to present it in a way that people, not the general audience, could understand it, and that they would like be engaged. And so for you, what is creativity to you? Do you consider yourself I said you're a creative, but do you consider yourself to be a creative? Like, why or why not? And so what is creativity to you? Like, what does that all encompass? Does it just encompass writing, or how does creativity show up in your life?
For me, it's like just what I wear. Like, I was like, my hair, I've been wanting my blue braids back for the longest. So to have color hair, to do my makeup any certain way that I want to. If I feel like, oh, today I'm gonna be super cute, I'm gonna dress super, super girly, because that's like the type of mood I'm in. But if I'm feeling like, I want to be on my skater stuff, I'm gonna wear some baggy pants and just be really, it just depends on what mood I'm in that day. or what music I'm listening to. It's like, oh yeah, this is the vibe for today. It really just depends. It really just depends.
I agree
But,
with you. Definitely do depend. I am a sweats and t-shirt girl, tennis shoe girl to the core of me, like to the core of me. But then every now and then, now that I got older and I feel like I'm tapping more into like that feminine, and it's not to say, because I don't want to start talking about clothing bias, but for me, tapping more into that feminine side of myself. When I get dressed up, when I get a little cute, get a little snatched, put a little makeup on,
you just look.
Girl, who is you? Like, who you think you is? I'm cute. I'm me. And so I agree. I think that does definitely encompass creativity, and it just makes you feel good. Like,
yeah, like people think like, oh, you're creative, you just do art. Like creative, whatever you do, if you're like, a person that plays soccer, the way you move your feet, the way you play the game, that's your artistry. That's the way you create with your body. It's literally, it's just like how you present who you are to the world. To me, that's what being creative.
I agree, and I 100% agree with you. So yeah. I guess one of my last and final questions as we begin to wrap it up. I don't know if we're at the hour or not. I forgot to put the timer on.
Me, I don't know.
We're very close. I know we've been here at least 30 to 40 minutes, and that's fine. So, but my next question for you is like, what advice would you have for other writers? Like, what would you give a writer? Like, what advice would you give a writer who's looking to write their first book? And what advice would you have for them? And actually, I have one more question after that, but answer that, please.
For anybody that wants to write, no matter if it's like, from personal experience, or if you want to like write your first movie, just do it. There's there's tools out there where you can like kind of get like an outline, but just write. Don't worry about the format. Just get your ideas out your head, and then you can like, clean everything up. But like for me, it's just like, oh, I want everything to be perfect. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just write, get everything out, and then just look what you have, and then just go from there. Just like, don't limit yourself. Don't worry about the rules. Cause in my head, I felt like I broke rules in my book. So
absolutely, we all break rules. Like,
so, I think so just just write, just go for it.
And I feel like that's the benefit of like being a creative and being a writer. I feel like, especially also you being a poet, I feel like poetry, to me, in my honest opinion, and of course I know plenty of people, whoever listens to this, a lot of them, the literary people, might disagree with me. I feel like poetry has no rules. I feel like poetry is however you want to express yourself, however you want a line to show up on the page, however you want that alliteration to sound. It is based off of, first off, writing is subjective to me in general, period. And so it kind of frustrates me. It used to frustrate me a lot as an English major when I would either get anything under an A or B on a paper, because it's like, because you don't agree with me doesn't mean that what I said was incorrect. And that frustrates me, because writing is very subjective. And so if my professor doesn't agree, then that you're grading me based off of, whatever your opinion is in this regard. And I really appreciated my professors who indulged in and promoted and and was very excited about being very open to whatever way you were swaying or whatever argument you were trying to present. And they were very open and honest about that. And then they'll give their feedback or whatever. But then you also have them people that is just like, this is how I feel about this, so I'm going to grade you this because I don't think that you are correct. And so that hit me a lot. And it really, I think that's part of the reason why I probably didn't even continue to pursue an MFA, is because I took a poetry class and I just didn't feel, I felt the way about getting graded on my poetry. You're teaching me a way to write this and stuff like that. But that creative writing class kind of frustrated me, because I was like, who are you to tell me how my poem is supposed to show up? Like how this piece is supposed to be written. You don't know, from my perspective as like an African American or whatever, and you might be like a white professor, you can't understand my perspective of the world and my outlook on the world. So that does kind of like, frustrate me, but I definitely agree with you. Like, there is no rules, just write, just get it out there, just say what you have to say. And then, you let somebody else who kind of knows the structure and all of that stuff to kind of,
Yeah, but it's just like have your own voice, because there's so many stories that can be told, because not every Black person is the same. Like, I'm a Black girl that grew up in the Midwest in predominantly white schools in a predominantly white town. So like the way I see things is way different, because like I had to come to a realization that, I was kind of like forced to be white because of, just the time period my parents grew up in and what they wanted for us, and not realizing like, okay, maybe this wasn't the best idea. Mm-hmm. And like, taking away from my Blackness.
Yes.
So you're going to school, have the code switching, have to be a certain way, but then at home I can be my carefree Black self, which is like I can't be myself.
Yeah,
when I'm in these spaces.
The thought of being a double, it's like having double consciousness, as W.E.B. Du Bois says. And so you have to have that. And of course, we call it code switching, but that's basically the full concept, is that concept of double consciousness being having your personal, your private self versus your professional self, and having to navigate through the spaces. I kind of understand where you're coming from, because I too went to, for a significant period of time, I bounced around in several white schools, and I kind of grew up in a very much so mixed culture, where I was around all kind of people, and I like you said, no one Black person's experience is exactly the same. So I was introduced to multicultural, multi-ethnic backgrounds from a young age, because my grandmother is a pastor, and so we were around all kind of people. So my aspect or outlook and perspective on life might be different from somebody else's who was fully immersed in the Black experience. And to be honest, there were some things about my Black experience that I didn't really get a chance to fully develop until I got, moved on later into like college and stuff like that, where I created, even though I went to a predominantly white institution for undergrad, I specifically immersed myself only in mostly Black culture while I was there on purpose. Like, I purposely did that. Yeah. And so I understand. I actually wanted to talk to you about that, but that's a whole nother podcast. Like, we could literally do a whole nother episode. Growing up in completely or predominantly white spaces as an African-American woman. And I feel like some of that kind of showed up in your book a little bit, but you didn't really deep dive into it. But to have your perspective and for you to even mention that and to say that and to talk about that, I think that is definitely something that needs to have a longer discussion, talking about how to be authentically Black in a space where maybe your culture it may not even be thought about or even celebrated, and so, and how you, as you went on, like, did you go to HBCU or where did you go to?
No, I went to a predominantly white college.
As well, huh?
Yeah, and even in my major, there wasn't a lot of us, and it was the ones that we had, it was cool, but it was just like, it wasn't, the school was already small, and so it wasn't a lot of us.
Yeah, as a librarian, major. As a librarian, there's not a lot of us. I mean, it's a nice amount of us, and I feel like more people of color are going into librarianship, but there's still very much so a diversity issue in the library. And our libraries, you don't think about there being a diversity issue, but there is. And having
very
to
much
fight through that is a whole thing, a whole thing. Before we end this off, like, is there anything that you're working on, anything special you're working on writing wise, or anything that you want to share with us? What's the tea, sis?
Well, I mean, I'm always working on something. I guess we'll just give a little exclusive. Kiara and I, we're kind of working on some stuff together. Yeah. So it's still under, we're still working on some stuff, but we are gonna do something together in the near future.
Super.
So that's exclusive.
Super excited. We'll actually have Kiara, poet, Kiara Charles on this podcast as well. She'll be on here a little later. So I'm super excited to because listen, both of y'all are dope. And so that married together is gonna be amazing. I have an idea for something, but I don't know if we'll see. I have an idea for something, and I always have ideas. You know, I'm full of ideas. So I have an idea for something, but I don't know if and when it's gonna happen. I'm gonna reach out to the respective people to see if I can get that off the ground someday. But I want to do like this compilation book of different things. So I'm still on the about that because it's a little, it's a little shindig. So it's a lot to put together, and I'm still trying to learn and figure out because I'm always in I still have that publisher's brain too. So I'm trying to figure out all of the dimensions and dynamics and the legal parameters surrounding it and how everybody would get paid and all that stuff. Is a lot. So I'm gonna hold off on this till I'm ready to deal with this. Until I ask somebody who has more information. So please tell the people where they can find you, and I'll probably place it at the bottom so they'll see it as well. But let everybody know where they can follow you at and where they can pick your book up at, because y'all need to support this Black woman.
Yeah, support me.
Support her.
Everyone can follow me on Instagram at Nikigotagun. That's Niki got a gun. And my book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Yes. Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Please go pick up 29 Lessons, A Diary of a Black Girl. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. It is an amazing book, written by an amazing person. So thank you, Nikki, for being here. Thank you for
having me.
This new podcast. Like, I am super excited about where this is going, and to have people like you that are willing to like come and talk with me for an hour. It is just, look, I'm just excited. I'm overflowing.
Me too. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. And everybody, you can follow me at Stories with Bree on Instagram, and also follow this YouTube page. Like and subscribe. Yes. Video will definitely be on YouTube, so please like and subscribe.
YouTube famous.
And make sure y'all also subscribe to this podcast, because we're gonna have some good times here. Like, we're gonna have fun here. So I am super excited. Well, thank you once again. I'm gonna stop recording, and then we'll talk about it later.